Tonight, we travel beyond myth and memory into a story where gods walk among whispers older than stars. This is not a tale of war, nor of thunder striking the earth. It is a journey of wonder, where even Zeus, the king of gods, must listen to a voice greater than his own. The voice speaks of a hidden truth, woven not in fire or stone, but in the endless river of time. They call it the Veil of Time, a mystery older than Olympus itself. Through this veil, past and future breathe together, yet never reveal their secrets. And so begins our tale, Zeus and the Veil of Time. The sky above Olympus was calm. No storms, no thunder, only silence, stretched wide like a canvas of blue. Yet, within that silence, something stirred. Zeus, seated on the high throne of Olympus, gazed beyond marble pillars and golden halls. He was not searching for anything. Yet something found him. It began as a murmur, softer than the breeze. At first, he thought it was the wind passing over the peaks. But no, this was different. The whisper called his name, not in fear, not in reverence. It was neither mortal nor divine. The sky itself seemed to breathe a secret into his ear. Zeus. He turned, but no figure appeared. No messenger, no herald, only the endless air curling against the mountainside. He frowned. He was ruler of Olympus, master of storms, keeper of thunder. Few dared approach him unseen. Fewer still could speak without showing themselves. Again, the whisper came. Do you know the veil? The word clung to the air veil. A veil of what? Clouds? Secrets? Shadows? Zeus leaned forward, hand resting on the arm of his throne. The murmur faded. The mountains grew still, as if holding their breath. For the first time in an age, Zeus felt unsettled. He rose from his throne, steps echoing across marble floors. Outside, the gods stirred. Hera's eyes followed him. Hermes tilted his head in curiosity, but Zeus said nothing. He walked to the edge of Olympus and looked out over the world. Valleys, rivers, and golden fields stretched far below, alive with mortal voices. Yet the word remained. Veil. It was not a word of power he had ever claimed. Not carved into the stones of Delphi. Not etched into the laws of gods. It belonged to something older. Who calls me? Zeus thundered aloud. The mountains gave no reply. The wind curled gently around him, then slipped away. Only silence remained. Yet deep inside, he knew this was real. If the whisper had reached him, it was meant for him. That night, restless beneath the stars, he looked toward the hidden corners of the cosmos. Could there be a force beyond Olympus itself? He remembered the whisper, the veil. The word pulsed in his chest, steady as a heartbeat. Zeus had faced titans, spirits, and endless trials. Yet this was different. Not an enemy to strike, not a challenge to defeat. It was a question. And questions, he knew, could be more dangerous than thunder. He closed his eyes. Silence wrapped him. Soon, a vision came. A curtain woven of light and shadow, stretching farther than stars. Behind it, movement stirred. Not faces, not figures, only stories. Countless stories, rising and falling like waves. The vision faded, but its weight remained. At dawn, Zeus had made his choice. He would not dismiss the whisper as mere wind. He would not ignore the word that clung to him. He would seek the truth of the veil. And though he did not yet know, this search would draw all of Olympus into a journey unlike any before. A journey where time itself would speak. The whisper did not leave Zeus. Even as dawn touched Olympus, the word times, veil times, lingered like a shadow beneath clear waters. He knew he could not ignore it, but neither could he chase it alone. So Zeus called the assembly. The gods gathered, their steps echoing through marble halls, their presence filling the air with power. Hera arrived first, eyes sharp, carrying the dignity of a queen. She stood beside Zeus, calm, yet curious, watching his troubled face. Athena followed, robed in silver and wisdom. Her gaze was steady, as if she already anticipated what her father would reveal. Hermes slipped in lightly, winged sandals barely touching the floor. eager for secrets and riddles. Apollo entered last, his golden light spilling across the hall, soft yet commanding like the first rays of morning. When all had gathered, Zeus rose from his throne. His voice was strong and measured, echoing like distant thunder. "My kin, rulers of the heavens, listen." A whisper came to me. Not mortal, not divine. A word was spoken. A veil. The hall grew still. "A veil?" Hera's voice was steady but sharp. "A veil of what, husband? We rule the skies, the seas, the earth. What is hidden from us?" Zeus shook his head. "I do not know, but the word clings to me. It calls me beyond what even we command." Athena stepped forward, eyes bright with thought. "If it reached you, it was meant to be heard. Perhaps not a veil of clouds, but of truth." Hermes smiled faintly. "Truth wrapped in riddles. A veil hides, after all. And we gods dislike what dares hide from us." Zeus's hand tightened on his throne. "This veil feels older than Olympus, older than our reign. I must know what lies behind it." Apollo strummed his lyre, voice calm. "Perhaps the veil is not a wall, but a rhythm. Time may weave it, to guard what should not yet be seen." The words settled in the hall like soft sunlight. Even Hermes grew quiet, considering them, but Hera lifted her chin. "If time hides it, perhaps it must remain hidden. You are king, yes, but even kings must respect balance." The vision of the curtain returned to Zeus's mind. Light and shadow woven together, endless, alive. The whisper echoed, "Asterisk. Do you know the veil? Asterisk." He looked to Athena. "What would you counsel, daughter?" Her voice was clear. "Do not tear at it in haste. What is concealed may not be meant for you yet. Instead, seek to understand. Let it teach." Zeus nodded slowly. The veil was not a foe to strike. It was something else. A message, perhaps, or a mirror. Hermes leaned against a column. "Then let's search for clues. If it's older than Olympus, maybe its story lives in Delphi, or forgotten scrolls." Apollo strummed again, his song haunting. "The veil will not be found in stone alone. It moves in vision, in dream, in the rhythm of time itself." The gods exchanged glances, some curious, some wary. Finally, Zeus raised his hand. "I will not ignore this call. We will seek its meaning. Together, if need be. Alone, if it must be so." His words rolled like thunder, steady and unshaken. Not harsh, not demanding, as if he spoke directly to time. The assembly ended. The gods drifted back to their realms, each carrying fragments of thought, none forgetting the fire in Zeus's eyes. As silence returned to the hall, Zeus stood alone, gazing toward the horizon. Beyond the clouds, beyond the stars, something waited. And he would find it. The assembly ended, but whispers of the veil clung to Olympus like mist. Each god carried thoughts, yet none more restlessly than Hermes. For Zeus, the veil was destiny. For Hera, a test of balance. For Athena, wisdom. But for Hermes, it was a riddle, and riddles begged to be solved. He wandered marble halls, winged sandals silent. The word veil fluttered in his mind like an unopened letter. If answers existed, they had to be written somewhere. Not in Olympus, not in golden halls or echoing chambers, but in Delphi, the sacred place of visions, where prophecies lived among shadows. He remembered an old tale. Deep in Delphi's library lay a scroll, older than Olympus, written before the gods themselves had claimed their thrones. If Zeus sought the veil, perhaps this scroll would whisper back. That night, Hermes took flight. The stars stretched above, the earth a quilt below. He flew swift and silent, a shadow among constellations. By dawn, Delphi rose before him, pillars weathered, chambers humming with unseen voices. Even for a god, the place pulsed with mystery. Hermes slipped inside unseen. Priestesses prayed, unknowing of the messenger brushing past like wind. His eyes glittered with curiosity. Deeper he went, past altars and chambers, until he reached the library. Rows of scrolls waited, some cracked, some untouched for centuries. At last, he found it. A scroll bound not by string, but by threads of silver light. Even Hermes hesitated. The scroll pulsed in his hands, alive, as though waiting to be read. Carefully, he unrolled it. Words shimmered, shifting like water. Not mortal, not fully divine, yet he understood enough. The scroll spoke of a veil stretched between moments, not between worlds, but between what was and what might be. It was no wall, no prison. It was a boundary woven by time, guarding the balance of becoming. Behind it lay visions, futures unformed, stories unborn, paths untaken. To pull it aside was to see all, yet risk unmaking the song of existence. Hermes frowned. The words were warning as much as revelation. They carried weight, and he was not fond of weight. Still, the riddle thrilled him. He closed the scroll. Threads of silver knit themselves again. His heart raced. Zeus would demand it. But should he give it all? For Hermes knew his king well. Zeus was strong, relentless. But wisdom was not always his greatest companion. If he demanded to see the veil fully, what then? Hermes tucked the scroll beneath his arm. Answers were dangerous. Silence could be worse. Zeus had asked for truth, and Hermes had found a piece of it. When he returned to Olympus, marble gleamed in morning Sunday. Zeus awaited him, thunder flickering in his eyes, though no storm yet formed. Hermes bowed, sly smile on his lips. "My king, I have found something, a scroll that speaks of the veil. But its words shift, they warn, they hide." Zeus leaned forward, eager, unsettled. "Then we will read them together. If the veil is written of, it shall be known." Hermes held the scroll tighter, torn between relief and dread. For sometimes riddles are safer, unsolved. When Hermes placed the scroll in Zeus's hands, Olympus grew quiet. The air felt heavy, as if the sky itself leaned closer to listen. Zeus unrolled the scroll, but the words shimmered. They twisted and slipped away like mist. They refused to stay, refusing to reveal their truth. "What trick is this?" Zeus muttered. His voice was more curious than angry. The words had spoken to Hermes, but to him, they shifted endlessly. Athena stepped forward. "Perhaps it is not for waking eyes, father. Perhaps the veil speaks only in dreams." Zeus frowned. Dreams belonged to Morpheus, not him. And yet, the scroll pulsed faintly, as though agreeing. That night, Zeus sat alone in his chamber. The sky outside glimmered with stars. Inside, the silver glow of the scroll lit the silence. He set it before him. He closed his eyes, not in command, but in surrender. Slowly, the edge of sleep took him. And there, between shadow and silence, the veil stirred. At first, it was a ripple, like wind over water. Then it spread, unfurling, a curtain woven of light and shadow, endless and shifting. Zeus reached out, but his hand touched nothing. The veil was there, yet not. It pulsed with countless moments, countless possibilities. A voice rose, soft, like 1,000 whispers breathing as one. "You seek to know, but to know is to change." "I am king of Olympus," Zeus said firmly. "I do not fear truth." The veil shimmered, silver threads dancing. Truth is not a crown. It is a river. Step in, and the waters reshape you. Visions flickered across its fabric. A city rising and crumbling. A child born beneath starlight. Faces of gods fading and returning. Zeus touched one glowing thread. A vision unfurled. He saw Olympus trembling. Thrones stood empty. The heavens folded inward, swallowed by silence. Above it all, the veil, torn open, spilling futures like shards of glass. Zeus recoiled. His breath caught. The vision vanished. Only the shifting curtain remained. The voice whispered again. "The veil is not yours to command. It is the breath between heartbeats, the silence between notes. It is becoming." Zeus clenched his fists. He would not bow to riddles. Yet deep within, he felt a tremor. Not fear, but humility. The veil pulsed once more, then faded into darkness. Zeus woke with a start. The scroll lay sealed before him. Outside, dawn painted Olympus in gold. For the first time in ages, Zeus felt uncertain. He had seen the veil. He had touched its warning. And though he was king of gods, he knew even kings could not hold time in their hands. Still, he whispered, "I will not turn away." Zeus was not one to yield, even to mysteries greater than his throne. Far away, unseen, the veil rippled again, aware, alive, and waiting. Morning stretched across Olympus, painting marble halls in gold. The gods moved in silence, each carrying the weight of the veil's whispers. But none carried it more quietly than Hera. She had seen Zeus return from his dream with eyes clouded by something rare, uncertainty. Her husband, the Thunder King, rarely doubted. He commanded storms. He bent fate itself. Yet the veil had touched him. Hera was no stranger to doubt. She had seen kingdoms rise, mortals grow bold, gods restless. She knew strength alone did not hold Olympus together. Balance did. Patience did. Choices made in silence, as much as in thunder. When Zeus called the council, Hera stayed quiet. She listened to Hermes speak of the scroll. She listened to Athena weigh wisdom. She listened as Apollo warned of visions that blinded as much as they revealed. When silence fell, all eyes turned to her. Hera, queen of Olympus. Her voice came last, but it carried judgment. "My husband," she said slowly, "you dream of the veil, yet return with only questions. Questions left untended can unravel the throne." Zeus straightened, thunder stirring faintly. "Would you have me ignore it? Pretend the veil does not stir?" The voice called to me. Hera did not flinch. "I would have you rule wisely. Curiosity is fire. Left unchecked, it consumes more than it reveals." The council murmured. Hermes tilted his head. Athena folded her hands. Apollo's eyes glimmered between agreement and doubt. Hera's voice stayed steady. "The veil shows what might be, not what must be. Do not mistake shadows for fate. Chase them, and Olympus will chase ruin." Zeus was silent. Thunder and silence circled each other in the chamber. Finally, softer than expected, Zeus said, "You think me reckless." "I think you human," Hera answered. The council stirred at her words. Gods were not compared to mortals. But Hera meant no insult. "If doubt touches you, it is not weakness, it is warning. Even kings must step carefully where time has laid a boundary." Zeus held her gaze. No storm broke. Only silence stretched between them. At last he nodded, not in defeat, but acknowledgement. "Your caution is wisdom. But the veil calls still. Its whisper will not fade. I cannot turn away." Hera closed her eyes. She saw Olympus trembling, heavens folding, the veil tearing. Were these warnings, or seeds planted by their act of looking? That night, while Zeus turned to the stars, Hera walked alone in the gardens. The air was heavy with ambrosia blossoms, yet her heart carried no peace. She thought of the veil, of voices stirring within it, of futures glimpsed but not lived, and a question bloomed quietly in her chest. What if the veil did not only reveal? What if it shaped? What if seeking gave it power it never held before? Hera stopped beneath a marble archway, moonlight in her eyes. She wondered if wisdom lay not in seeking, but in guarding silence. Yet she knew Zeus would not rest. The thunder in him demanded movement, even when the earth begged for stillness. Hera sighed softly. If Zeus walked into the veil's mystery, she would follow not as a shadow, but as the one voice reminding him. Even kings need balance. Even thunder needs silence. As the moon drifted above Olympus, Hera's doubt deepened, not only in Zeus, but in the veil itself, and the role it now played in the song of time. The council had ended, but Olympus still trembled with unease. The veil lingered in every thought, heavy as shadow. Hermes, restless as ever, could not ignore it. Waiting was not in his nature. Where others debated, he searched. Answers came not from silence, but from motion. So one evening, he slipped away. His winged sandals carried him to forgotten chambers deep below Olympus. There, dust held secrets older than fire. And one secret called to him most, the Scroll of Echoes. It was not written by mortals, nor even by gods. It belonged to something older, something in between. Legend said it captured voices at the edge of time. Not prophecy, not memory, but echoes. Hermes had traded countless favors to learn its resting place. Now, at last, he stood before its door. The stone was carved in spirals, glowing faintly with starlight's memory. He pressed his hand against the seal. The door opened with a sigh older than Olympus itself. Inside lay darkness, but Hermes, god of travelers, feared no darkness. He stepped inside until his eyes found it the scroll. It rested on an obsidian pedestal. No dust touched it. Time had no hold. The parchment shimmered faintly, as if it breathed. Whispers stirred, at first faint, then clearer. Voices, countless voices, filled the air. Hermes leaned closer. The scroll spoke. Not words, but echoes. Laughter, sorrow, pleas, silence. He reached out. For once, he hesitated, then touched it. The scroll opened on its own, as though it knew him. Golden script unfurled into the air. Not written, but alive. The lines danced, shaping visions. Hermes gasped. He saw rivers running backward, cities rising, then fading into mist. Stars collapsed, then blazed again. And at the center, Zeus, standing before the veil. But Zeus shifted with every vision. One moment, he held the veil open in defiance. Another, he was consumed by it, dissolving into endless folds. Another still, he turned away. Olympus fractured without him, the scroll whispered. These are not destinies. They are echoes. What could be? What should not be? Hermes frowned. The veil was no longer just mystery. It was a mirror, maybe a trap. He closed the scroll gently. It resisted, reluctant to fall silent. Zeus would demand to see it. Hera would warn against it. Too much truth, too soon, could break more than it healed. As he turned to leave, the scroll's voices followed him. Some whispered his name, others warned. Do not carry what you cannot understand. Hermes smiled faintly. When have I ever obeyed warnings? He carried the scroll into the night. Above, the stars shimmered with quiet awareness. The path ahead was uncertain, but his steps were swift. For Hermes knew, the scroll was no simple relic. It might be key or snare. And in the silence between heartbeats, he wondered, had the veil whispered to him too? Or was it only his own echo, waiting to be heard? The council had ended, but Olympus still trembled with unease. The veil lingered in every thought, heavy as shadow. Hermes, restless as ever, could not ignore it. Waiting was not in his nature. Where others debated, he searched. Answers came not from silence, but from motion. So one evening, he slipped away. His winged sandals carried him to forgotten chambers deep below Olympus. There, dust held secrets older than fire. And one secret called to him most, the Scroll of Echoes. It was not written by mortals, nor even by gods. It belonged to something older, something in between. Legend said it captured voices at the edge of time. Not prophecy, not memory, but echoes. Hermes had traded countless favors to learn its resting place. Now, at last, he stood before its door. The stone was carved in spirals, glowing faintly with starlight's memory. He pressed his hand against the seal. The door opened with a sigh older than Olympus itself. Inside lay darkness. But Hermes, god of travelers, feared no darkness. He stepped inside until his eyes found it the scroll. It rested on an obsidian pedestal. No dust touched it. Time had no hold. The parchment shimmered faintly, as if it breathed. Whispers stirred, at first faint, then clearer. Voices, countless voices, filled the air. Hermes leaned closer. The scroll spoke, not words, but echoes. Laughter, sorrow, pleas, silence. He reached out. For once, he hesitated, then touched it. The scroll opened on its own, as though it knew him. Golden script unfurled into the air. Not written, but alive. The lines danced, shaping visions. Hermes gasped. He saw rivers running backward, cities rising, then fading into mist. Stars collapsed, then blazed again, and at the center Zeus, standing before the veil. But Zeus shifted with every vision. One moment, he held the veil open in defiance. Another, he was consumed by it, dissolving into endless folds. Another, still, he turned away. Olympus fractured without him, the scroll whispered. These are not destinies, they are echoes. What could be, what should not be. Hermes frowned. The veil was no longer just mystery. It was a mirror, maybe a trap. He closed the scroll gently. It resisted, reluctant to fall silent. Zeus would demand to see it. Hera would warn against it. Too much truth, too soon, could break more than it healed. As he turned to leave, the scroll's voices followed him. Some whispered his name. Others warned, "Do not carry what you cannot understand." Hermes smiled faintly. When have I ever obeyed warnings? He carried the scroll into the night. Above, the stars shimmered with quiet awareness. The path ahead was uncertain, but his steps were swift. For Hermes knew, the scroll was no simple relic. It might be key, or snare. And in the silence between heartbeats, he wondered, had the veil whispered to him too? Or was it only his own echo, waiting to be heard? The veil unsettled Zeus, and it burdened Hera. But for Apollo, god of light and prophecy, it was different. The veil was not a threat. It was an invitation. Apollo was no stranger to visions. Mortals came to his temple seeking glimpses of their future. His oracles spoke in riddles, carrying the threads of time. But the veil felt different. It did not reveal. It whispered. It lingered. It reached for him in ways even his light could not resist. One night, Apollo climbed the marble steps to his chamber. He lit no torch. He needed none. The veil's light already lived inside him. He closed his eyes and let silence fall, not into sleep, but into vision. Golden mist swirled before him, endless as eternity. Then came sound notes, weaving into melody. Not music of lyres, but the song of time itself. Apollo followed it. The mist parted, and the veil appeared. Not as Zeus saw it, not as Hermes described it. Here, the veil was alive. Its folds shimmered with unborn moments. He touched the light, and visions spilled forth. He saw Olympus shining, gods and mortals united. He saw Olympus fractured, divided by pride and secrets. He saw himself radiant, guiding mortals with truth. He saw another self, broken, lost in visions he could not escape. The veil showed not one path, but all paths. Infinite possibilities waiting for choice. Apollo's heart pounded. Even he could not hold them all. The visions blurred, and he cried out. The song swelled louder, almost too loud to bear. In that crescendo, he understood. The veil was no gift of clarity. It was a mirror of possibility. The danger was not in seeing. It was in believing too much. The mist closed. The song faded. He gasped awake as dawn broke. Light filled his chamber, but peace did not. He had seen futures radiant and futures ruined. The veil tempted not only Zeus, it tempted them all. Later, in the gardens, Hermes appeared, scroll in hand. Apollo did not smile. The veil is not to be conquered, he said. It is endured. Hermes raised a brow. Endured? That sounds unlike you. Apollo's gaze turned to the horizon, shadowed in sunrise. Even the brightest light can be blinded, he murmured, and I have seen what waits when we stare too long. Hermes tilted his head, but said nothing more. The scroll whispered against his arm. The veil whispered still in Apollo's mind. And beyond Olympus, the song of time waited. Patient, endless, ready to be heard again. On Olympus, dawn brought calm. The marble halls gleamed, the gardens shimmered, and the air hummed with immortality. But not for Hera. She carried a silence that even Zeus noticed. The queen of gods, sharp and commanding, now moved like a shadow. At first, she had spoken with certainty. She urged caution, demanded wisdom, insisted they not rush. But her certainty was cracking. Alone in her chambers, The fountain's echo gave no comfort. She thought not of light, but of the veil's pull, because Hera too had felt it. She told herself she was immune. Her will and clarity would guard her, yet each time she closed her eyes, it returned. The shimmer, the silence, the promise. It was not power she wanted. It was something deeper, a question she had never dared to ask. For ages, she had ruled beside Zeus. She endured his triumphs, his flaws, his thunder, his silence. She was queen, mother, protector. But who was she for herself? The veil seemed to ask her that. When she touched its thought in secret, it did not show futures. It showed her something else. A Hera unbound. A Hera free of duty, free of expectation. The vision unsettled her. Not because it frightened her, but because it comforted her. And comfort, she knew, could be dangerous. "Why do I linger on this?" she whispered. "Why do I let it speak to me?" Her doubt grew heavier. If even she could be swayed, what hope was there for the others? And what of Zeus? Would his hunger blind him? Would his pride undo them all? She pressed her hands to her temples. The veil breathed in memory alone. A knock came at her door. Athena entered, calm and steady. "You have been distant," she said. "I am guarding Olympus," Hera replied. "From what?" "From itself." Athena's silence carried wisdom. At last, Hera whispered, "The veil tempts. It asks questions no one should answer. Even I have felt it." Athena did not flinch. "It gives reflection, not power," she said. "And reflection can be more dangerous than any weapon." Hera listened, torn between comfort and unease. That night, she stood on her balcony. The stars burned bright. The mortal world slept below. She folded her arms, restless. She could not confess her doubt to Zeus. He would see it as weakness. And Hera was not weak. Yet a whisper lingered. What if the veil was not danger? What if it was escape? The thought cut sharp. She turned back inside, dismissing it. But the whisper did not fade. It grew. And so, Hera, the unshakable queen, carried a secret tremor. A tremor that could shift the fate of gods, while others wrestled with visions and doubts. Hermes carried secrets. The scroll had come quietly, not in thunder, but in silence. He found it deep in forgotten archives of Olympus. He slipped past pillars, down dust-laden stairs. He lit no flame. His own spark guided him. In shelves untouched by time, he found it. A single scroll, edges worn, ink dim, humming with eternity. Hermes smiled. This was no ordinary record. It was a key. Days later, he still carried it close. And he had not told Zeus. Not yet. The scroll was not a prophecy. It was a map, not of land or sea, but of time. Circles upon circles. Threads winding into each other. Lines vanished, then returned stronger elsewhere. A design larger than Olympus itself. Hermes studied it in secret, by moonlight, by starlight, when no one watched. And the scroll whispered back. The veil was not new. It had touched mortals and kings before. It whispered to forgotten empires and dreamers. Some listened. Some turned away. Some vanished into it. None returned the same. Hermes traced the loops with his finger. Each path possible. None promised. But one truth remained. The veil was not to be mastered. It was to be encountered. He leaned back, tapping the scroll. How would Zeus react if he knew? Would he rage at the secret, or clutch the scroll like a lifeline? Hermes chuckled softly. Better to wait. Better to know more first. But unease flickered in him. In one corner, a circle was sealed. Not open, not flowered. Closed, silent. No future stretched from it. Hermes stared longer than he meant to. Even he felt a chill. The scroll grew heavier. He tied it shut with care, slipped it close against his skin. Dawn broke as he stepped outside. The sky painted itself pink and gold. Olympus stirred awake. Hermes breathed deep. He smiled again. But it was a smile of secrets. For Hermes carried a truth the others did not. The veil was also a map, and some maps led to endings. He crossed the courtyard, cloak fluttering. Mortals prayed below, gods stirred above. Olympus glowed timeless. Hermes kept his secret close, his grin sly, his heart quickened. Somewhere in that sealed circle waited truth, a truth he dared not name. The air on Olympus was charged, as if every cloud carried not just thunder but anticipation. The gods had been summoned, and they answered. Zeus called them to the great hall, vast and glowing with marble and light. It had seen councils before, but never one like this. Apollo entered first, golden and solemn, his lyre silent. Athena followed, sharp-eyed and steady, wisdom like a shield at her side. Hermes appeared in a flutter of cloak, secrets hidden in his sly gaze. And Hera arrived, poised, though doubt shimmered beneath her calm. The hall filled with voices, echoes of divine power. Ares muttered, restless. Artemis stood apart, gaze cool as moonlight. Poseidon's trident shimmered, waves of presence rolling through the chamber. Finally, Zeus entered, thunder following, though the skies were clear. He raised his hand, and silence fell. The veil is no longer a whisper, he said, steady and deep. It is a presence, and it demands our decision. The gods stirred. Apollo spoke first. It tempts with visions. To seek too much is to drown. Hermes smirked. Or perhaps to discover. Maybe the danger is not the veil but us. Athena's eyes narrowed. The veil reflects. Reflection can reveal cracks we fear to see. Poseidon rumbled like distant surf. Words mean little. Do we act or do we wait? Hera's calm voice cut through the room. We act with caution. The veil tempts with doubt as much as power. A murmur swept the hall. Each god knew her words were true. Zeus clenched his fist. The veil cannot be ignored. Mortals feel its whispers too. If we do nothing, it will choose its own course. And that course may undo us. Artemis stepped forward, cool and firm. Do you mean to seize it, Zeus? Bind it? Guard it? Zeus post. Finally, he said, I propose we face it. Together. The hall erupted in voices. Some cried yes, others no. Ares demanded action. Demeter urged patience. Hephaestus muttered of forging chains strong enough to bind even light. Through it all, Hera studied Zeus. His words were steady, but hunger shone in his eyes. A hunger for answers, for control. And it frightened her, more than the veil itself. At last, Athena raised her hand. If we go forward, it must not be as conquerors, she said. It must be as guardians. Facing the veil is to endure, not to master. Zeus nodded slowly. Guardians, he repeated. The word fell heavy, but it held. The gods exchanged looks wary, eager, uncertain. The course was set. Olympus would not ignore the veil. They would face it together, for better or for ruin. As the council ended, Hermes slipped quietly into the shadows. The hidden scroll pressed warm against his chest. He knew what the others did not. The veil was not only a question, it was also an answer. And some answers ended everything. The gathering was over, but the true beginning had just arrived. The night on Olympus was still, but it was the stillness of something vast holding its breath. The gods gathered, gazing at the veil that shimmered on the horizon. It pulsed like a living heart, a curtain of light spilling across the edge of time. The council was over, and words had been spoken. Now only the choice remained. Zeus stepped forward first, thunder restrained in his chest. For all his power, hesitation shadowed his eyes. Hera followed, steady but watchful, warning still in her heart. Apollo raised his hand, shielding against the glow. To look into it is to risk blindness, he said. Athena spoke firmly, her voice cutting clear. The veil is not conquest, it is test. Hermes lingered, scroll hidden beneath his cloak. His sly grin masked the quickening of his heart. The gods moved as one, steps echoing across marble. Artemis walked like shadow, bow silent at her side. Poseidon's trident hummed, oceans singing in his hands. The veil rippled as they neared, colors dancing like dreams. Zeus felt power. Hera felt truth. Athena felt knowledge. Hermes felt possibility. And Apollo heard music, sorrowful, yet bright. They stood before it, silent, humbled. The veil loomed, fragile as silk, vast as eternity. It promised nothing. It warned nothing. It simply was. Hera broke the silence with a whisper. Together, they joined hands, forming a fragile circle of trust, their power braided, steadying rather than conquering. The veil stirred, then opened. Not torn, not forced, but unfolding like dawn. A sliver of light widened into a path. It called without words, inviting without demand. Zeus breathed deep. "This is it," he whispered. One by one, they stepped forward. First Zeus, then Hera, Athena, Apollo. Hermes clutched the scroll, then slipped into the glow. The veil embraced them whole. Light wrapped them in warmth and infinity. And then silence. No thunder, no storm, only stillness, like a pause before the final chapter. Olympus stood empty, echoing with wind. Mortals prayed below, unaware their gods had stepped beyond. The veil shimmered once more, folding like a secret. Its glow lingered, faint yet unyielding. The gods had crossed the threshold. Where it led, none could yet say. The world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching, listening, for the veil had opened, and time itself would never be the same.